Sudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Dharam Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tado Jayam Budirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Buttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Krupatvam Mahamandi Sri Guru Dinataram Paramanandam. Tam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text number 10. Nayadvacha Chitra Padam Hareryasho Jagat Pavitram Pragnita Karihichit Tadvashayam Tirtam Vushante Manasa Nayatra Hamsa Niramanti Ushikshaya. Word meaning translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Not yet that vachaha, vocabulary, chitra padam, decorative, harer of the Lord, yasha of glories, jagat universe, pavitram sanctified, pragneta described, karhichit hardly, that vayasam cross, tirtam place of pilgrimage, ushanti think, manasaha saintly persons, not yatra where, hamsaha all perfect beings. Nirmanti, take pleasure. Ushikshayaha, those who reside in the transcendental abode. Translation. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. Purport is very big, so I need to read it out and explain as per my realization. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshmurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yatapadakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamcha Sri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Cha Vishakanvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostume Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Krupa Sindhubhya Eva Cha पतितानां पापनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. Welcome all the devotees. So before I start the class, I take all the assembled Vaishnavas blessings, so that with your blessings I can able to speak something in line with Guru Parampara. And yesterday we also had 1.5.9, and today this 1.5.10 and 1.5.11. These two slokas are describing two kinds of literature. One is the mundane literature, the other is the transcendental literature. Now let's discuss this one. Nayad Vachas Chitra Padam Harir Yasho Jagat Pavitram Praghrinita Karhichit Tadvayasham Tirtam Ushanti Manasa Nayatra Hamsa Nirmanti Usikshayaha. Word Usikshaya means those who reside in the transcendental abode. Translation: those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered to be saintly persons, to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all perfect persons are inhabitants of transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. The point to understand here, the words which we speak if they do not glorify the Supreme Lord Krishna, and it is of no use. And also here in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is mentioned that the people who talk about mundane subject matters, they are nothing but, a type of crows which talk about all nonsense. So the Paramahamsa devotees, they do not take pleasure in such kind. Now, Srila Prabhupada gives wonderful purport here. Very, very invaluable lessons today we have. Please give your focus. Crows and swans are not birds of the same feather because of their different mental attitudes. The pretty workers or passionate men are compared to the crows, whereas the all perfect saintly persons are compared to the swans. In one shot, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that mundane people, they are actually birds of different feather. So they always, glorify into the material atmosphere. They never come in touch with the transcendental literature. The crows take pleasure in a place where garbage is thrown out, just as the passionate, fruity workers take pleasure in wine and women and places for grass and pleasure. We also keep seeing so many birds. Then there is a garbage. They come and sit and, they keep on eating. And wherever, even in a healthy place where garbage is thrown also, they come there and they fly, they eat, they move around the garbage thrown there. In this way, they are very much satisfied. They are very happy also. Prabhupada here compares them, just they are like pretty workers. They also take pleasure in wine and women, and they simply throw the money and they enjoy women, they drink a lot. That what happened, recently, 31st December, and in the name of welcoming the new year. And these people are so passionate and ignorant. They whimsically they drink and they forget themselves. The constitutional position of a living entity is to serve the Supreme Lord, but the living entity is forgetting and he wants to enjoy himself. Here we can understand that this is a gross sense pleasure. But where in scriptures it is mentioned that we should celebrate in this way, drinking, uh, uh, whimsically enjoying the women and dancing. Nowhere in the scriptures it is mentioned. So the devotees, see, the swans do not take pleasure in places where crows are assembled for conferences and meetings. Similarly, worldwide, there are so many congresses, meetings, and so many assemblies are gathering, and they gather in huge number. They talk everything except Krishna. They are dress consciousness, they are materially consciousness, they are, all consciousness except Krishna consciousness. They are instead seen in an atmosphere of natural scenic beauty, where there are transparent reservoirs of water nicely decorated with stems of lotus flowers in variegated colors of natural beauty. So this is what swans, they take pleasure. So that is the difference between the two classes of birds. As we all know, birds of the same feather flock together. Similarly, here crows and swans are not birds of the same feather. They are different. Crows look very black, but swans look very white. They look very white, and their beak is somewhat orange or red in color. They look so beautiful. But looking at the crow itself, we can judge what kind of bird it is, because it is always trying to sit on the garbage and eat some nonsense. It's so something like that. So why Prabhupada has given this? Because it's already mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam that passionate people, they are compared to the crows, whereas the devotees are compared to the swans. Nature has influenced different species of life with different mentalities, and it is not possible to bring them up to the same rank and file. Yeah, it's a natural phenomena. People, those who are too much ignorant, and we cannot able to bring them to the sattvic level unless otherwise they chant the holy name of the Lord. Now, Buddhist Vision Marathon is going on. We try to distribute as much as possible, And even in the discount prices also we give them, or with combination of calendars and Japamala and free Bhagavad Gita classes we are offering. Not many people are coming forward. So they are like, crows, the mundane people. And when our devotees show them Bhagavad Gita, and they say, I don't want, I don't want. They say, as if this is very contaminated, they are keeping away from the Bhagavad Gita. That's why many senior devotees, acharyas, they said, let them at least touch Bhagavad Gita. You need to place them in their hand. At least they get some piety. Similarly, there are kinds of literature for different types of men of different mentality. Mostly the market literatures which attract men of the crows categories are literatures containing refused remnants of sensuous topics. They are generally known as mundane talks in relation with the gross body and subtle mind. They are full of subject matter described in decorative language, full of mundane similes and metamorphical arrangements. So there are so many poets, so many philosophers, so many scientists, and so many scholars, and they always describe the nature, and they have so many poems and so many similes, and like Shakespeare, John Keats. In India also there are so many kavis are there. They describe the nature so many things. But if you technically also you see, when they describe the nature, they should understand who created this nature. So Bhumi Nalo Apollo Vayu, the Supreme Lord says. Also say, Lord says, from me, all the spiritual world, material world, everything emanates from me, he says. So that's why here, these mundane people, they forget the Supreme Lord who created this material nature, and they only are concerned with the material nature, and they glorify in so much way. And people also are reading so many novels, magazines, and comics, and so many videos and TV serials. Nonsense is going on, but crows type of people, they take so much pleasure in watching, reading them. Such poetry and prose on any subject matter is considered decoration of a dead body. Please note this point, Srila Prabhupada very nicely says. This is whatever we do, mundane, this is called decoration of a dead body. Like there are so many people who say, people they die, and people they want to decorate with the suit, coat, boot, and even rose also they keep on the coat, and even they want dead body also with a smiling face. So funny thing. They do so much nonsense, but Prabhupada says here, they are all nothing but decoration of a dead body. But what is the use? It does not move because the soul has already left the body. So spiritually advanced men who are compared to the Swans do not take pleasure in such dead literatures, which are sources of pleasure for men who are spiritually dead. These literatures in the mode of passion and ignorance are distributed under different labels, but they can hardly help spiritual urge of the human being, and thus the Swan-like spiritually advanced men have nothing to do with them. That's why when we speak Bhagavad Gita, when we distribute Bhagavad Gita, any fortunate person opens it and he can able to read, then he will understand, I am not this body. All these days, I spent my life thinking I am this body, but Bhagavad Gita says that I'm not the body. I'm the soul. Even there is a super soul also inside the heart. Oh, very nice. So good news. Like that, he can get himself enlightened by preaching of our ISKCON devotees. Such spiritually advanced men are called Manasa, also because they always keep up the standard of transcendental voluntary service to the Lord on the spiritual plane. Like when we celebrate the festivals, when we distribute Gita and Bhagavatam, and when we invite all the people for Harinam Sankirtan, when we distribute Prasadam, this is all, transcendental voluntary service to the Lord. This completely forbids fruitive activities for gross bodily sense satisfaction or subtle speculation of the general egoistic mind. People are, so much egoistic. They cannot just like that and understand what is the soul, what is the super soul. So it takes a lot of time. Social literary men, scientists, mundane poets, theoretical philosophers, and politicians who are completely absorbed in the material advancement of sense pleasure are all dolls of the material energy. Prabhupada gave them one title. So those who are mundane people, they are, puppets. They are dolls of this material nature. Whatever nature, makes them accordingly, they dance, they tune, because they cannot whimsically do without the approval of the Prakriti. When there is an earthquake, they have to die, and they cannot do their own way. So these type of people, they take pleasure in a place where rejected subject matters are thrown. According to Swami Sridhara, this is the pleasure of the prostitute hunters. Oh, Sridhar Swami gives here a nice statement and a designation for the people who are taking much pleasure in reading mundane novels, watching the mundane televisions and serials and cinemas, and talking about those they have already watched, and unnecessarily getting into the politics and talking so much prajalpa. So Sridhar Swami gives the title for such people. They are all prostitute hunters. So very pathetic word. So, but literatures which describe the glories of the Lord are enjoyed by the Paramahamsas who have grasped the essence of human activities. The real human activities will begin with Gita, Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. If they read and hear such literatures, they will be completely absorbed in the service of the Lord, because that is the ultimate goal. So here we can understand that a living entity in his constitutional position, he can only able to understand what is the spiritual nature and what is material nature and what actually his role into that. So in this way we can also discuss. Then I have a small PPT on this. Hope you all can able to see. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you. So here, this is a flow chart of which we have been doing. So I'm very happy all these 56 people who have joined, and they are also daily joining. So when we do this kind of Gita and Bhagavatam, we need to completely study, observe it. We need to ask our leader, preacher, Prabhu, what is this? Mataji, what is this? I could not able to understand. Can you please explain? So here, Gauranga Darshan Prabhu, he has very nicely described with the flow charts. And wherever we are in first canto, so this 10th and 11th slokas talk about two categories of literature. One is materialistic for crow-like people, and two, transcendental literature for swan-like people. That's why we should, whatever we have already done in our previous life and this life, we need to take a total 360 degrees and change our consciousness into Krishna consciousness and trying to read and hear and understand this literature. So these 10 and 11 verses, they talk about crows and swans. As you know, this is a Manas Sarovar where crows does not have any role to play. Only the swans means the devotees, they come and take pleasure in Gita Bhagavatam. Whereas crows, they have their own garbage place to make an entry and talk about and live in them and meditate on them. Like philosophers, one word I can say that they're all non-devotees of the Lord. But they can be also given a chance. One day they can also become devotees of the Lord. So these crows are compared to all these kind of mundane people, and swans, are compared to the devotees of the Lord. So transcendental conferences, when we see Srimad Bhagavatam in Naimisharanya happens, the swans do not take pleasure in places where crows are assembled for conferences and meetings. Only the elevated souls, those who are interested in enjoying the pastimes of the Lord, they are very, very happy. But whereas mundane people, they organize so many seminars, conferences, meetings, like an international conference, and you have been given permission, and these mundane people so much puffed up, and they very, enthusiastically. They share such things in their Twitter and their Facebook. They keep, I have been invited for the international conference. But what is the topic about? This topic only about mundane and all sense pleasure. In these topics, and there is no Krishna. If there is no Krishna, and this is nothing but a garbage. So birds of the same feather flock together. Like-minded people like us, we join in Hamsa platform. But whereas the crows, they try to catch where there is a prey, where there is a meat, they fly high, and their target is only meat. So there are different kinds of literature for different types of men of different mentality. Like a mode of person who is in ignorance, he tries to talk about all these. He may also read these Puranas. But whereas Sattvika Puranas are Vishnu Purana, Narada Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, that is Bhagavat Purana, Garuda, Padma, and Varaha Purana. These are all the Sattvic Puranas. These are the Rajasic, these are the Tamasic. So even in the Bible also it is mentioned. What does it mean to say, hallowed be the name? Srila Prabhupada also uses this word many times. What does it mean? Means to pray, hallowed be your name, means to ask God to let his name to be worshipped, exalted, honored, and adored on earth as it is in heaven. It is to ask God, so move and act the world that people will worship and treasure him above all else. In that way, hallowed be the name is defined here. Similarly, with Uttama Sloka, we are supposed to glorify the Supreme Lord with the choicest poetry and with the finest words, because he is the Supreme Lord. We have some reference in 1.5.22. Idahmi pumsam tapasya sutasya va. Svistasya sukatasya cha buddhi dattayo avichitto artha kavibir nirupito. Yad uttama sloka gunanu varnanam. Learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, namely austerity, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of hymns, and charity, culminates in the transcendental description of the Lord, who is defined in choice of poetry. That means Uttama Sloka Gunana Varnanam is the choice of the poetry. We need to, in such a way, we need to glorify the Lord. So moving further, how do we glorify? Everything we have in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. So these are the literatures which describe the glories of the Lord, are enjoyed by the Paramahamsas who have grasped the essence of human activities. So instead of novels, comics, magazines, newspapers, TV serials, with all this nonsense, we have already done. Enough is enough. Now it is time for us, after getting enlightenment, we need to act accordingly. Otherwise, human life will be a big waste. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given this Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This is the best Uttama Sloka, by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We can also glorify the Supreme Lord. So these are the old pictures where Vasudeva is described, but without glorifying Krishna. Then Narada Muni appeared and he gave advice that you have not described the Supreme Lord. Now it is time for you to nicely glorify. Then the Srimad Bhagavatam will evolve. Then Srila Prabhupada also translated from Sanskrit to English. The whole world is enjoying all this Bhagavad Katha. Whoever reads this and whoever hears this, their life will become completely perfect. Randara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.